Good evening and welcome to Behind Open Doors. I'm Genevieve Bergman, and tonight my guest is the lovely and the always irreverent Twin Peaks. And
Well,
you're always irreverent.
hi.
So, was that Todd?
Minnie.
Oh, Minnie. Hey, Minnie. So tonight we are talking about a couple of different topics. It's sort of a semi-potpourri tonight, as Twin and I are going to talk about some things that I recently experienced, some things that she's experienced, and so maybe we can pass along some information to everyone else. So tonight we're going to be talking about hormones and how fluctuations in hormones can play upon mental health. And then we're going to be touching on the subject of ghosting and how we can kind of recover from that and get back into sort of our main hot form. So that's a couple of the subjects. We may even chase a couple of very large rabbits because both of us are prone to do so. So, questions are always welcome in the chat on Twitch, also on TikTok. So please, why hello, Tyr. Now Tyr is in two places, and I am mortally confused. By the way, Tyr, I do have a picture that I do need to send you, but not during the show. Okay, so let's get started with hormones.
Well, first, before we get into it, since we're getting into like medical stuff, we should announce that like neither of us are really medical professionals. You know, always, please seek counseling from your doctor, your medical team, whatever. Most of what we're going to be talking about will be strictly anecdotal.
Yep.
And so, therefore, take it with a grain of salt. But, you know, in our experiences, these are things, you know, that we've noticed, things that I know I'll be talking about things that I've heard from other women. Again, anecdotal evidence sort of thing. So take everything with a grain of salt, and always speak to your physician and your medical team in general about what specifically applies to you.
Right. And for transparency's sake, I am a transgender woman. I have been on hormone replacement therapy for 2 years as of this month. And as of November, that includes estradiol, progesterone, and spironolactone. So that's what I am working with as far as when I talk about hormones from my perspective.
Yeah. And I'm just this fan. Yeah, just too many hormones. Like, far too many.
All the hormones.
All the hormones. So many.
So
because it will become pertinent part of everything later, I do take Lexapro and Strattera to help with my moods and things like that, to help with my depression and ADHD. So just as a heads up.
Yeah, and I take sertraline, which is Xanax, Zoloft, not Xanax, Zoloft, and Buspirone or Buspar for my anxiety and my depression. And again, that is stuff that's going to come into play as we talk about how hormones can impact our mental health. So
100%.
The context of this is, and what brought this up, was over the weekend, I had an emotional collapse where I just had a depressive episode unlike I'd had in quite some time. As I was sort of working my way out of that, I looked back and I realized that about the same time that my depression started and my mood began to go down, I had just been bumped up on my estradiol. 1 milligram a day. So that kind of got me to this, place of talking about this, because many of us who are in our medical transition, we end up having to play with these numbers all the time. And so Twin is someone who has a lot of experience trying to work on her mental health, and many times has noticed that her hormones interact with that. So that's why I wanted to have that conversation in depth with her, because she's also one of my trusted friends that I go to for womanly advice. So,
I did want to also mention really quickly. I'm actually going to look it up here in just a second. There are several podcasts about this topic specifically. Like Katiosaurus has interacted with one of them. I'd look it up on my phone, but there are podcasts out there that specifically are about like the hormonal effect on like just on ADHD.
right.
Like it's important to note that as much as we hate it, you know, as much as I dread them, hormones really do play such a massive part in our medical care, our mental health. Adulting with ADHD by Sarah Snyder. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
She is incredible, fantastic podcast. I love listening to them. She actually has a story or an episode recently that like talked about specifically like transgender care as a ADHD and neurodivergency. Yes, so definitely go check it out. Adulting with ADHD podcast by Sarah Snyder. It's incredible. Her main focus lately has been on hormones. So all that to say, like this is not new information. This is not information that isn't commonly known. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's common in the areas, like it's common amongst people who are already suffering because of it.
Yeah.
Does that, like, it's common if you know that there is a problem already. Like, you know about it, it's probably because you've already experienced the consequences of it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've mentioned before, I'm in a ton of Facebook groups, you know, support groups and stuff like that for people with ADHD, parents, moms, etc., entrepreneurs, things like that. And one of the most common laments that you hear in there is about women that are like, oh my God, my hormones are just playing havoc with this. And that is echoed across the board. Right. Every single person I've seen comment on those has always said the same thing. Mine too, me too. Yeah. And it's because, as people are realizing now, Katiosaurus did an amazing bit on this. She could go more in depth than I can right now. But like estrogen is a dopamine receptor. Mm-hmm. And so when you have a sudden uptick in that, like you'd think like, oh, that means you're going to be so much happier. But like your brain is actually spazzing the fuck out and kind of like backpedaling. Yeah. I know for myself personally, when I'm around my menstrual cycle, like prior to it, my premenstrual symptoms, oh dear God in heaven, like that is like the lowest that, you know, when you're on your period, if you are somebody who has a menstrual cycle, when you're on your period, that is when you have the lowest levels of estrogen and the highest levels of testosterone that you were ever going to have in your entire 28-day cycle. Right. And people think of like, oh, it's only during. It's typically a couple of days before and a during, and then the estrogen levels even out and increase at the end of your cycle, the last few days, right? So the first few days for me, when everything plummets, I am a holy terror. And again, this is not new information. Most women, you know, most people with a uterus, most women, we all know, like, we've been there, you know, some of us more than others. And there's, you know, they're realizing that there's a huge connection between your PMS symptoms and neurodivergencies and how they interact with medication. Like, these are not new facts. Right. And it's just, there's not nearly enough research being done on it, unfortunately. Because, you know, we're in the DSM, I think DSM-6 was just published a couple of weeks ago, last month.
Did it come out?
Yeah,
I thought it was a May release, but it could have been April.
Yeah, it's the new DSM. I don't know if it's 5 or 6, but the new DSM, I want to say 6.
It's 6.
Just came. and they're only just now like amending some of the diagnostic criteria. And there was a lot of pushback against like Russell Berkeley and a lot of like leading researchers on ADHD. There was a lot of pushback from the diagnostic community, and it mostly stems from like politics within the community, of like the diagnostic community. Again, Katie Soros has an amazing, her and Eric have a great podcast, I think series, like it was like a mini series that they did specifically on the new DSM. Go check it out. But I just, there's so much there. There's so much to unpack there.
Right.
So I think all of that to say, and also you guys, I apologize. I am very unmedicated for my ADHD right now. So if I squirrel, I apologize in advance. Feel free to like wrangle me back in. I promise I will try and herd the squirrels as best I can.
Okay, Twin, in all fairness, the last time you were on this show was with Tyr, and we didn't follow a script, and we were all over the place, and you were fully medicated, so there is no excuse for us squirreling. So
this is who I am.
This is who we both are. So
very true.
So Lacey says in the chat that she goes through that as a trans woman, experiencing cramps, migraines, just that general feeling of and Gabrielle, periods but no bleeding, cramping, and in feelings. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation, is that hormones impact physical, just like they're describing there, but it also impacts mental health issues. And if anyone has any form of mental illness, pathological illness, so for me, that is my, major depression, general anxiety, my complex PTSD, all of those together, as my cycles, and yes, we do have cycles, whether...
Let's be very clear, like everybody, male, female, wherever you fall on the gender spectrum is irrelevant. You are going to have hormonal fluctuations.
Yes.
Across the spectrum. Male, female, otherwise, in between, all of it doesn't matter. You're going to have hormonal fluctuations.
Yeah.
So if you have a uterus, there's like physical proof, like, hey, but
but
so many.
Also, just going one step beyond that.
Yeah.
When we are conceived and when we begin to develop, the wiring for both exists.
Yep.
And when you switch primary fuel from testosterone to estrogen, estrogen to testosterone, the circuits become alive, so to speak.
And even just genetically speaking, right? Like if you want to go like down to basic science, like shit that I remember from high school, we all start off with 2 X chromosomes.
Right.
We're all going to have the same kinds of hormones. Whether or not there's enough testosterone hormone there present to flip that X to a Y.
Yeah.
Or, that's it. Otherwise, we all start off with the same 2 X's, bitch. Like, no, sorry. We all, we all start off the same, and then it gets flipped. There's like the little switch, just like whether or not there's enough of one thing. I know I'm probably like super simplifying. I'm very likely I'm like misremembering some details, but it's just like one flips it to a Y.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So like those hormones are there. Everybody forgets men have estrogen too.
Yes.
Male presenting bodies, and they have estrogen too. It does not matter. They're all there. We all have hormonal fluctuations.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a matter of estrogen gives people cramps, or estrogen gives people migraines, or estrogen, fucks up mental thinking processes. It is that the variance, the difference between estrogen and testosterone is which nerve endings get fired off. And so, I mean, go try this. Go switch all of your spark plug cables around and see how that does working for your car.
Right, exactly. Good luck. Yeah. Well, okay, so I do want to say really quickly, like, I don't know, I'm a Google researcher, right? Like, I don't know enough to speak on to, like, the physical ramifications of hormonal HRT. Like, I would not feel comfortable commenting on that. Like, your anecdotal evidence there is obviously going to be far superior to mine. I got none. I know what people tell me.
Right.
Like, I could talk on, like, the mental health issues too. I mean, obviously, and that would probably be like, it's just. Sorry, I was. Train of thought derailed. No survivors. Nah. Sorry.
What I was saying, and I think we're getting to the same place, Twin, is that when it comes to things such as mental health, in many ways it is the biochemistry of our bodies interacting on certain neuroreceptors within our bodies that leads to those wackadoodle poodle moments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So estrogen and testosterone are both neurochemicals that impact those receptors, and so they're going to land differently.
Yes.
So, and that's all I was saying.
Yeah. Well, and actually, I'm going to let you continue with one point. I'm going to look something up really quickly.
Okay. And so, I mean, if anybody's heard my take on transgender experience, it has to do with the fact that when we switch from testosterone to estrogen or estrogen to testosterone, what we do is we engage a set of neural pathways that we already had, but because we are fueling them differently, we now can engage the entirety, or at least some of the entirety, of all of the other systems that are engaged in that neural network.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's why we get boobs that hurt all the damn time. And women, cisgender women, look at us and say, bitch, welcome to womanhood. Shut up. And it's like, yeah, we get that. Cramps. Some of my fem-cis siblings experience cramps. And there's been a whole lot of fighting on that.
Well, and, like, I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I'm just trying to think of, like, the psychological part of that, right? Because, like, there's always, like, the connection. And I don't doubt that they're feeling the cramps. Like, honey, if you tell me you're feeling the cramps, I believe you. End of story. I'm not going to tell you what you are or are not feeling.
Right.
But it's interesting from a psychological perspective because cramps typically are associated with the contraction of the uterus as it's shedding the lining. So for somebody who has to female, like, to be experiencing cramps, like, again, as somebody who knows nothing about the physical ramifications, right, admittedly, like, I'm just interested to see, like, where that's coming from, because, I mean, we have documented cases of, like, sympathy pregnancies, right, of, like, where the husband is experiencing all the same pregnancy symptoms as their wife.
Yeah.
Like, is it something like that? I'm just curious.
So, again, when we're talking about a menstrual cycle, and we're talking about moving through that cycle in time relative to estrogen versus testosterone ratio. All right? So as you move toward the period, when the uterine is going to be shedding off, estrogen has dropped.
Right, and you get more testosterone.
Relatively, there's more testosterone in the system. That triggers what is then called cramps, but it's not the uterus that is cramping. It is the abdominal and the muscles around the digestive system that are actually doing the cramping. The uterus is not a muscle.
Well, yeah.
The uterus is a hollow organ. not of muscle tissue.
Okay.
So it is the muscles of the abdomen that are actually doing the cramping.
Wow. Look, pride of the Mississippi public education system here. I didn't know that. Okay. Today I learned.
So, since we all have abdominal and, the muscles of the digestive system right around there, why do you think you always need to go poop when you're near your period?
I have the opposite problem, actually.
Okay? So, there are poopy problems right around the time of your period. And that is because those muscles that are working on the lower digestive tract are also working on the uterus.
Wow. Okay. Today I learned. Did not know that.
There you
This
go.
is why sex ed is important, because like I'm 31 years old and I'm just now learning that's about how my uterine system works. And wow. Okay. Cool.
So this is why I am so popular on TikTok.
Lessons with Genie.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those cramps are the same because as a transgender woman, if they are on a regulated dosage of estrogen, as they reach a certain point in that, regimen, the estrogen is going to drop relative to the testosterone that still remains in the body. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have enough androgen blocker in your body, your testosterone is super low.
Yeah.
But if you're at a relatively low, like in the 60s or 70s, and you've been used to an estrogen level that is like around the 90s,
Yeah.
and then you dip down below that, the relative testosterone is higher, therefore it's going to trigger the cramping.
Cool. All right. Didn't know I was gonna listen. This is making me happy. I love this.
So, that's just the biochemistry at work.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of other complex components to it that are involved. But that is, that would be the biochemistry at work within the body.
Cool. All right. Well.
And so that's why transgender women can experience
Actual physical cramps.
Physical cramps. It's not psychosomatic. It's actually chemically necessary.
Oh, cool. Okay. See, and here, and I'm glad we're actually having this lesson moment, because I really did think it was psychosomatic, and I'm sure there's a ton of people, well-meaning allies or what have you out there who probably thought the same thing I did. So I'm glad we actually I got to learn that.
Okay, wait. I need to do a little bit of housekeeping.
Uh-oh.
And it is yo man who needs to be house kept. Tier, I am going to tell you right now. Oh, he's in TikTok. I'm going to tell you right now that if you have not experienced cramping directly due to hormonal changes in your body, shut your damn man mouth. He's gonna literally come kicking in the door.
What did he even say? What is it? What's my man doing? Am I gonna have to bury him somewhere?
So he said, this is what he said. He's like, we will get to ghosting eventually. Squirrel. And I'm like, no. This is pertinent and relevant to the discussion that we first just talked about. So there.
This is an important conversation to have on this.
Exactly. And Tier, if you don't understand that at a certain point in your wife's life, almost at 28 days.
Well, he knows. He has seen firsthand when I have been on, he and Mini Peaks both, bless them, they have seen firsthand when I am on the couch, curled up in the fetal position, just everything. Don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't touch me, don't keep it away. I don't want anything to do with any of y'all. They have been there, done that, survived it So he knows a little bit secondhand, but he knows.
So Tyr does in fact know, albeit secondhand, that hormones do impact mental health of men and women.
Oh yeah, he's very well aware. I mean, so perfect segue, actually. I'm not going to go too far into details, but like this weekend was particularly rough for me. This past weekend, I hadn't taken my medication for a couple of days. I'm having to swap up my medication for health reasons, which is why I'm off my ADHD meds right now. And there was some personal stuff going on. And it was just like it was one of those weeks that we've all had where it's just like, and this happened, and that happened, and, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's been like the last couple of weeks for me. And so this weekend, similar to Genie, I just shut the fuck down.
Yeah.
Mine was not hormonal related per se. I don't think. No, it wasn't. But because I was off of my medication, particularly because I was on my Lexapro, I noticed that I was very much having like real issues with my emotional regulation.
Yeah.
What goes back to like, and I'm on just a very, 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 like I am on a half dose of the lowest dose you can get for Lexapro as an adult. I'm on a teeny, like, I think it was like 5 milligram, teeny tiny dose.
Yeah.
2 days off of it, I was batshit, like just depths of depression. It was really bad. And it was like, didn't want to get out of bed. I was having other like physical symptoms. My emotions were all over the place. I was cranky. I was moody. I was angsty. It was not good.
Yeah.
And it was very similar to how I get prior to my period.
Right.
And like, that's the only way, like thinking on it, that's the only way to describe it is it's just like uber PMS.
Right.
And I already have very intense PMS. I forget what it's called. Like there's some new anagram, not new, but that's like level 10 PMS. And I was at like a 15. It was not good. And all of that was, stress and everything else related. But one of the things that we did have to keep in mind is like, is it potentially hormonal related? Because I am a 31-year-old woman, body wants to make babies, and like now it's not making babies. Like how much is that affecting what I'm going through? Right. Like it's a whole shit show.
Yeah.
And it was rough, and it can be like, especially for people out there who are like trying to have babies and they can't, and their body is telling them like, oh, but you're supposed to, but they like physically cannot for whatever medical reason, what other situational reason there may be. Like how much does that factor in there too? Because again, havoc on your mental health.
Yeah. Elisa came in with premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
That's what it is, PMDD. Thank you, Elisa. I was like, I know I can count on one of you.
Elisa is pretty much our go-to chat wiki.
Elisa is invaluable. I love her.
Yeah, I know. So, real quick, I mean, we cannot diagnose nor can we prescribe anything like that. But have you found any way to see, like for me, I didn't notice it or think about it being hormone related until after the fact. When all of a sudden I was coming up out of the depression and it was like, oh shit, the doctor just changed my estrogen by 1 milligram a day at the same time that all of this began to happen. So, have you found a way to kind of be more mindful of those hormonal shifts whenever you experience that? Or is it something, like what I went through and you just kind of get out of it and you say, damn it, there it was again?
So it kind of goes both ways for me personally. I've also been practicing cognitive behavioral therapy for years. at this point. I have trained myself to be a bit more aware of what's going on.
Right.
Like, I'm not perfect by any means. I definitely have times where I am like that, where it's like, I just have to pull myself out of it. And
Right.
then once I do it, I can, objectively sit back and be like, oh, now I get it. And that especially applies to like my PMDD, because a lot of times with having like a tracker, I forget that my period's coming up. So my moods and everything else would be going fuck that shit, and I'm just like, what is happening? Oh yeah, I got it. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I am, especially because I am so like very, very, very hyper aware of myself, doing like mentally, which is a double-edged blade. Sometimes I can kind of like take a step back, or something will kind of like snap me out of it, and I'm like, oh, wait, let's adjust here. Let's assess this. And sometimes I can sit back and be like, you know what? I feel like dog shit right now. I am a human dumpster fire, but I am a human dumpster fire that still has to pay bills and get shit done. So,
and then,
we're going to put,
Yeah, for me, that was sort of that same thing. Is like, I still have to do the things that I have to do. I just kind of had to really cut back on how much of me I could be in those things.
Yep.
And,
well, and that's been the biggest part of for me, as far as like the PMDD. Thank you again, Lisa. As far as like my PMS, PMDD, whatever you want to call it, my biggest thing is like the second I realize that that's what's going on, one, I'm better about, because I almost always like realize at some point that that's what's going on. And do one of two things. Either I need to just like give myself grace to just be the little dirty hobgoblin that I'm gonna be over in a corner somewhere and like curled up in a blanket, just like put my little pillow fort, my coloring books, and some chocolate, and fuck the world. I'm here. I'm good. Leave me alone.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna do that, or I'm gonna be, you know what, honey, that little annoyance that you had, you're gonna put this in a little tiny box and you're gonna throw that bitch in the closet until you can handle that, okay? And then you're gonna come back and you're gonna go handle whatever other things you need to do. And it's like, that's just how I have to think of it. I hope that made sense to somebody. But that's literally about it. It's just like, you got shit to do, baby girl. Put your big girl panties on. Right. Put the little in the closet. Call it a day. Keep trucking. Usually I'm fine. And those are the days though that I have to warn people around me, like, hey, I'm not feeling great. I'm a little angsty. I'm a little snippy.
Yep.
I apologize in advance. And usually that works. It's just a matter of like, like I so often say, give yourself grace, right? Like you have to figure out what that means for you, whether you turn yourself into a human burrito or you warn the people around you that you are a prickly fucking pear and they should approach with caution because you love them, but you might stab them. Like it could go either way.
So cactus love.
Cactus love, right. Okay, to be fair, you've been on the brunt end of that before.
Yeah, I know. Brunt? Hell no, that wasn't brunt. It was a fucking broadsword is what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, to be fair, that was one of those situations where I took a step back and was like, oh shit, I'm too much right now. I need to have several seats. Got it. Cool.
Yeah, that one was one enter too many when you had that realization.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have hit send on that last one. Should have worked through that one, but
yeah, I should have. But
to be fair.
But that's what I'm talking about. Is like you have to give yourself grace and you have to, own up when you fuck up. Of like, come back and apologize. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, my hormones were all out of whack. You know, my hormones were whack, so my head was whack. Everything is shit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks. But it's okay because I love you, you know? And, like, as long as you're not consistently doing that and you're not, like, you know, to me, I feel like as long as you're not the asshole that's just, like, always doing it and then always blaming shit on your hormones or whatever. Because that's such a dude move. Like, oh, it's her hormones.
Mm-hmm.
She's such a woman. You know? Like, no. Fuck you. You know?
And I don't know too many transgender women who necessarily use that in their former lives. I don't know. Maybe not. But the transgender women that I have been around, they've been much more sympathetic to women throughout their entire lives. And much more sensitive to those issues so that they wouldn't necessarily call them out or use them as a weapon in, you know, trying to explain something or to demean a woman in the process. Now, that's just my experience in that. It may not hold up true all the way across, but...
Well, I've been very fortunate that none of the trans individuals that I've ever met have ever used like hormones, HRT or whatever as like an excuse, or like you said, been critical of somebody because of hormones or what have you. I've heard tell of people doing that, but I feel like that, I mean, that's just it. An asshole is an asshole. It doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, what you look like, it doesn't matter. Like, an asshole is an asshole. And unfortunately, assholes are in every group. So, you know. But it's just a matter of like I said, you have to remember to give yourself grace, whether you're on HRT, whether you come by your hormones, you know. I don't want to say naturally because like HRT, but you know.
Still naturally. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a natural process of hormone replacement.
Whether your hormones are store-bought or not. Does that apply? Is that okay?
So, little message in TikTok from Coco. Twin has definitely caught my pokey side before.
Oh God, yeah. And she's caught mine. Like, I told you about, there's been times where she and I have butted heads. Yeah. Like, you know, and I've looked at her and foot mouth story here. I have called her on the fact, I'm like, baby girl, I love you so much, and your feelings are so valid and completely understandable because you're about to start your period and I need you to sit the fuck down. Like, it did one of those kind of things where I was just like, baby, aren't you like, and I was trying so hard to be nice about how I said it, but I was like, you're fixing to start, honey. Like, maybe like take a step back and evaluate what's going on and how your reaction, you know. And she didn't want to hear it, and it's totally fair because, like, I should have just shut the fuck up. But, you know, neurodiverse little, like, squirrel that I am, I'm like, I'm just going to say that thing. It's a terrible
verbal boundaries,
idea.
social cues, fuck that.
Right. Don't ever say that thing to anyone. Ever. But, and God love her, she forgave me for that. So.
Well, she's LOLing you, so.
Oh, yeah. She knows exactly what I'm talking about because she ripped me a new ass for that one, and then didn't talk to me for like a week and a half. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. You know, because you know, go figure. ADHD. I type or think or speak before I think. Crazy.
Imagine that.
All right, I know. Never would have kissed that for me. Me?
Every response I've ever gotten from you, Twin, has been so thoughtful and measured in its impact as well as its intent. Okay, we definitely want to touch on the second subject that we're going to deal with tonight, because that is also something that I've recently experienced for the first time in my new life that I can remember. And that is the issue of ghosting. And my experience is that in 1 week, two different people ghosted me and stood me up. And it was like, wow. This is, and I know transgender women and men and transgender men all experience this. This is not something that is trans specific. This is dating specific. This is relational specific.
I was gonna say this is more like I'm gonna use the broader term of like relationship specific, because like I did by friends before, where it was like a friend, literally like platonic friend date, and got ghosted, you know.
So just one more little cactus love jab. You mean kind of like when you said, I know that I just shit all over Genie in this text, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull back now and just kind of take a chill so I can get myself in order and not work through this like rational, reasonable, healthy, mature adults, right?
Yeah. That's fair.
And this is why
that's fair.
We do this in love.
Oh yeah.
We talk this out so that and we did, by the way.
Well,
Twin and I talked this out before the show tonight. She did not know that I was going to roast her during the show.
It's an earned roasting.
But we did talk about this, and we did clear the air on what happened. But you're right. It is relational. It's not just a matter of dating or trans. This is something that's happening. Why is it happening more now, though?
Oh, ghosting?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to do. I feel like ghosting people is far easier to do now than ever. Because, you know, like, well, I won't say than ever because, you know, Oregon Trail was a thing, right? When people, like, literally ghosted. But, like, sorry. Donner party at 5.
Okay, that one's a good one.
Yeah, thank you. No, but like I feel like I won't say it's easier to do. I'll say it's probably more convenient for a lot of people now to do, and it's a lot more like even though it's frowned on socially, it's also somehow more accepted socially. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, because the case that I had was, so I had been talking with a guy for a couple of months, chatting back and forth. We had not dated at that point. We set up a day that we were going to meet, have dinner, and just see how things worked.
Right.
The day came, but he had stopped texting me the night before, did not text me all during the day to confirm, and then when the time that we were supposed to get together came, nothing.
Yeah.
And had not heard from him for another 12 hours after that, and so it was like, block, not dealing with that anymore.
Well, what did he say when he got back to you?
He didn't.
Oh, he didn't respond, and he just blocked him preemptively. Okay.
After 12 hours of nothing, like, yeah. I'm sorry, I drove off of a fucking bridge, and now I have 2 broken legs and a broken arm. No, there wasn't anything. So it's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to play this game. So I blocked him. I just happened to have some other person that I had met in a social gathering who was interested in finding out about me. I'm like, great, and so we start chatting back and forth. I told him that I got stood up on the date. He's like, I hate it. I hate when people, where's the respect anymore?
And then that's exactly what he did.
Yeah. He turns around 2 or 3 days later and does the exact same thing. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
That's such a shit move. Like, and okay, let me be completely transparent here. I have been both the ghoster and the ghostee. Like, right. I have done the ghosting and been ghosted. So, like, I understand in some cases. Like, I have ghosted on purpose, and then I have, like, accidentally ghosted before, you know? And then, so, like, I always give people, like, a 24-hour grace period if they ghost. But I'm also one of those, like, especially for, like, dates and stuff when I was still dating. I'd message them the night before, hey, we still on for tonight? Da-da-da-da-da. Cool. If I don't hear anything from them, I only send one text the next day.
Right.
Hey, you know, I'm going to be at whatever location, and I'm going to wear this, so you know it's me. See you there.
Right.
And if I end up having a lovely date, I have a lovely date. If I don't have a lovely date, you know what? I'm having a lovely date by myself.
Right.
You know? So, like, that was always my take on it, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I've definitely been stood up before. And again, like, as somebody who's done the ghosting, I've had days where, like, my anxiety and mental health, you know, to take it back to that, was so shit that I could not even function, much less remember, oh, I have to go do a thing today. Like, I just recently, on Monday, when I was kind of in the thick of mental shitstorm, I ended up accidentally ghosting a girlfriend. And I messaged her literally when I was supposed to already be meeting up with her. And I was like, I am so sorry.
Right.
I'm right now. Da-da-da-da-da, you know. And we rescheduled, and she was very understanding, you know. She'd actually reached out preemptively, but still, you know, like, that's one of those scenarios where, like, with you, where I was going through shit, you know, like, not to justify it, because ghosting is ghosting and it's shitty, but I can, like, speaking for myself, I know that sometimes it's sort of like an unhappy consequence of, like, where my mental health is at.
Right.
That I'm just kind of like, I am dealing with some shit, and I just need to, like, shut everything out. And I'm not always communicating that that's what I need to do. And I feel like that applies to a lot of people.
Right.
Some people are assholes. You know, your second guy in that little story a second ago, like, he's an asshole. Yeah. That, you know, trash took itself out. And that's kind of where, like, I try to keep those thoughts when I do get ghosted, or when I did get ghosted, is because I know for a lot of us on the neurodivergent spectrum, being ghosted can very much trigger that RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. For those of y'all that don't, it can very much trigger that RSD. And one of the ways that I found to help cope with that for me was to just be like, you know what? It's okay. The trash took itself out.
Yeah.
I don't have, and again, I'll give that 24-hour grace period. But after that 24 hours, if I don't hear from you, or, like, see your name on a news story about a car in a ditch, I don't care.
Right.
You don't exist.
And for me, I think that's the great issue, is that when that RSD comes in, you know, it automatically becomes, oh, what did I do? And for the trans, you know, the insecure trans person in this little head up here is like, it's because I'm a transgender woman. And it's not, you know, it's very difficult in that moment to separate and say, no, this was not on you. They decided to do this. You were receptive. You were open. They were not.
We're not. And that's the thing, is, like, even if it's because, right, you're a trans woman. Like, if they don't want to go on the date with you because you're a trans woman, that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
That is them deciding after the fact that you being a trans woman is a problem for them.
Right.
It is a problem with who you are, not your problem. It's not your problem to bear. And that sort of mindset shift can be applied to so many things, not just on being trans.
Right.
Like, across the board to so many different factors. And that's one of the things that practicing CBT has taught me, cognitive behavioral therapy has taught me, is that, like, shifting that mindset to be like, to put the blame, if you will, where it belongs. You know, of like, oh, he he didn't want to go on the date with you because of XYZ. He didn't say that beforehand.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and
it's his laws, really.
And it didn't impact me very, it didn't impact me very hard the day that happened.
Right.
But I think it contributed to the down. I was already headed down, in emotional and mental abilities because of the hormone switch. And so when all of that got compounded, and it was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And. Yeah, and so, it was just that ongoing idea of what is wrong with me. And so that's my mental illness. What is wrong with me? What am I not doing right? What have I done wrong? What am I not doing this enough? And so that's my category. That's where I live. So, ghosting feeds into that. It feeds into that sense of what did I do or what is wrong with me instead of being able to give yourself a fair shake.
All right, I'm going to turn around and roast you a little bit. Just a teeny bit, gentle roasting.
Wait.
Break.
Let's put things into relative terms here, twin. For that which you may call a gentle roasting, I may be having my rump roast broiled to a cinder.
Okay, but to be fair, to be clear,
this
is going to apply to both of us. I'm just on one end of it. You're still in the thick of it.
Okay.
But I do want to point out that whole instant shift to what's wrong with me, what can I do better, what should I have done better, what is wrong with me, how can I fix me. That's a coping mechanism from trauma. Again, going back to mental health, CPTSD, I have it, that's a coping mechanism from trauma, and it's a codependency trait. One of those things where it's like, I need to be better. I need to be everything that you need so that you don't abandon. Again, been there, done that, wore that shirt for way too long.
Okay, that's not even, that doesn't even raise the temperature any. It's like, hell, yeah. Me, trauma, yes. Me, codependent, of course. Me getting called out on that all the time from twin. Well, this is nothing new. It's now Thursday, so.
I mean, nicer, okay? Try to be gentler about how I see it. God damn it. But no, that's what that is. And again, that goes back to mental health, like we were talking about earlier. And it's so important to be aware of how these things trigger.
So you didn't get me, but you did get somebody in the TikTok audience.
Oh no.
Coco says, I don't want a trauma and codependent talk. Shush. I feel seen. No, thank you.
Who said it?
Coco.
I know it. I love you, baby. That's not breastfeeding. This is why we're best friends. Is because I was like, my friend. That's her. Yeah, and don't get me wrong. She's caught the cactus of love too on that regard.
Yeah.
So and again, for me, it's, I was listening to something and it was talking about how, I was watching Cinema Therapy. It's actually really good. I think you'd like it's a really cool YouTube show.
Okay.
It's Jonathan Decker and Alan Seawright. Jonathan is a psychologist. Seawright is a director. They're best friends, and Cinema Therapy, go check it out. It's awesome.
Okay.
One of the things they recently talked about, I think you actually really like their show. One of the things they recently talked about in a series about Professor Snape was how it's the curse of knowledge, right? Where you know something so well and so deeply that you forget what it's like to not know the thing. Like adults that learn how to tie their shoes and then forget how hard it is to learn to tie your shoes.
Mhm.
Or people who learn to ice skate and are Olympic ice skaters, but then forget how hard it is to learn how to balance on ice skates.
Yeah.
You know, shit like that, right? And so for me, having come to this side of my codependency habits,
Mhm.
having come to this side of a more healthy place, and having largely, mostly, depending on the day, left a lot of those negative traits and habits in the past, I forget sometimes what it's like for people who haven't come as far as I have, or, you know, who have gone a different direction than I have,
Right.
you know, like, because obviously that's the thing too, right? Like, so, you know, in like your case, in Coco's case, like, I love y'all, right? Like,
Mhm.
and everybody, right? When everybody on any mental health journey, it's like, that's why I said give yourself and give others grace. I
Right.
don't always remember to do that because I forget what it's like to be on that side and need that grace.
Okay, I need you to repeat that clearly so that I can clip that and play that every time from now on
When I'm being a cactus?
when you say, okay, this is going to be blunt. And it's like, wait, I want to play something.
Right. No, just be like curse of knowledge and I'll know exactly what you mean. Like, leave it at that. We'll keep it real short for you. Like, make it, I'm going to make it easy for you. Just hit me with like, hey bitch, curse of knowledge. Okay, shut up, got it. All right. You know? Oh, Nadia.
I was getting ready to tell her, I'm like, Nadia, no, you don't want that.
You do not want me as a life coach, y'all.
You're too sweet and innocent.
Oh, no. Like, I am not good for that stuff. Like, I'm very good at being supportive, at loving my people, at like, I will go to fucking war for my people.
Right.
But
I've seen you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you have. But on that note, like, I forget sometimes to like swing the sword that way, not over here. You know.
Yes, there are times when you use
Yeah.
You use your defense of people by critically injuring your friends so that they don't step into it. Meaning, instead of defending them from whatever's out there, you see what's out there, then you turn around and shoot them in the foot so they can't go.
Yeah, that's an appropriate metaphor. I hate it, but that's an appropriate metaphor. Yeah. 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 I can't even be mad at that one.
But
Ooh.
But once the bullet is taken out and the foot is bandaged up and the bleeding stops and you get used to
I'm usually the one that's also like, it's fine, honey. I'm the one that's like bandaging and fixing. Yeah.
But, you know, after a while, you know, I went back and I looked at what you said. And it was like, I get it. I know what you're saying. I know how you are trying to protect me because sometimes I can't see where the danger lies.
Yeah. I very much have that sort of personality. And to tie it into what we're talking about, right? Like, a lot of it has to do with like my own mental health struggles and recovery and journey, which I'm still on and will always be on probably. Right. And a lot of it has to do with like when the last like big one that I went off on you, mm-hmm. I was like full on in the midst of really bad PMDD.
Right.
And be the first to admit it. Like, I was it was one of those times where I meant well in like, hey, I love you, but you're being dumb kind of scenarios. Like, because we've all been there. My delivery was way out of left field. Like, I was way out of pocket. And, you know, again, like Genie and I have talked about it. I've owned up to it, and I apologized, like a couple of days later, once I was finally like not head up my ass kind of mode. And again, like this is where like what we've talked about in the past before with like intention and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it ties into one of the things that I very vehemently believe, like passionately believe, and instilling in my kid of like, you know, look, our mental health is not our fault. My diagnoses, ADHD, depression, etc., you know, alphabet soup it up. My mental health is not my fault. It is my responsibility.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this scenario that we're talking about, just flat out, I fucked up. Came way out of pocket, you know, again, with loving intention, right. If not, you know.
But, because where your mental health was not your fault, but it is your responsibility, the same thing on my side. I was leading into the conversation being in poor mental health.
Yeah.
Not clarifying myself as to what I needed.
Right.
And so we had basically two mentally ill people trying to help each other, not knowing where each other was wounded.
Uh-huh.
So.
And that is a very common situation.
Yeah.
To like, again, like I go back to, I know she won't mind me saying this, like Morgan, Coco, and I've been in the exact same scenario where like one or the other, and like that's one of those things that's like that's one of those like friendship things, like your friends, your family, you know, you, Genie, I consider somebody not just a friend but a family member. Like, I love you, you know, and I know there are going to be days where just like Coco and Mama and we butt heads like motherfuckers. So what happens when you got a bunch of very strong-willed women together? We're gonna butt heads.
Yeah.
But like ultimately, you know, and again, going back to like intent and et cetera, and all those conversations we've had of like, ultimately, I know that you and Coco and Mama, no matter how much we may butt heads, like all of the headbutting is coming from love and support.
Right.
Ultimately. Again, the tact, the delivery may not always be there. And some days I just be like, you know, fuck up and leave me alone. Let me do the dumb.
Yeah. So it's all coming from love and concern and caring. It just gets filtered through all of our trauma.
Yes, 100%. And that's everybody, though. Like, it's through trauma, through hormones, through all of it, you know? Yeah. Like, I've lost friendships because people could not understand that. I'm like, look, like, yes, I understand that I'm reacting this way because of my traumas, but you're giving me a reason to trigger the trauma. Right. Like a former friend of mine, somebody I was very close to for a very long time, who's my best friend for many, many years. We don't speak anymore because he, you know, I'm going to put a slight general content warning here, but he was using language that gave me severe concern for his health and well-being.
Right.
I'll put it that way. And so out of concern, because as somebody who has lost people in the past through various forms, I reached out to his sister and I was like, hey, I don't know if you've checked on your brother lately, but here's what he said. This is why I'm concerned. We should probably check in on him. And I'm really, really worried because there's like this list of things going on and this is what he said. And like, I'm very like genuinely worried right now.
Right.
And he didn't take that well. Like, we don't talk anymore because he, in his head, had it that like, oh, you're only reacting this way because, you know, you've lost people, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I'm reacting this strongly because of XYZ. Probably. Yes, that's fair. But like, you're triggering the same responses with your actions.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so like that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind too, is like, and something that since then I have tried, not always been able to, but tried to get better at like assessing why I'm reacting so strongly.
Yeah.
And thought about a lot since our last interaction. And I was thinking about it today after you and I talked, and honestly, half the reason I reacted as strongly as I did with everything with you was because I was like, oh, look, it's me again. So I did the same dumb shit.
And that, so,
I don't want to go into personal details, but like, does that make sense?
well, Tier and I were talking before you and I talked.
Of course.
And I said something to the effect of, I know that Twin is coming from the place of her experience
Mm-hmm.
and what she went through and the trauma of that. So I understand the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I had already called that out because I heard in your words not as much, Genie, tell me what happened, as I already know what happened and I'm going to tell you how to fix this bitch so you can avoid it. And it was like, okay, it was coming from love, but it was also coming out of that space of where you had been.
Yeah.
The circumstances weren't necessarily the same, but you perceived the same outcome.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's very, it's very much like the tale of Cassandra, right, from Greek myth, of like the girl who can see, the oracle that nobody believed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get like, I mean, and we've all been there. We've all had, especially those of us who are survivors and live with CPTSD. 9 times out of 10, we see a situation and we can be like, been there, done that, seen this. This is how it's going to go.
Right.
So it does sometimes have a bit of that like Cassandra complex where it's like, I don't know how this is going to go and I don't want my friend to go through that. And like my impulse control, shockingly, isn't there. So sometimes I pop off without thinking about how I'm presenting, because it's like I'm just sitting there going like, all right, I know how this is going to go.
Right.
Here you go. And I'm not thinking about like, ultimately, there are different people, there are different players. It might go the same. It might go the same. It might not.
Let's also take this and sort of bring this back around to this subject.
Mm-hmm.
The communication of text does not make it possible to do this and see the impact.
Oh, yeah.
And so we now live in a culture where you can just cut somebody off and never have to consider what the impact is in their eyes.
Yep. Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm going to promise you here and now, and like call me on it at all times, forever and always, if I don't live up to this. But next time that like I'm going to have a serious conversation with you about that, we're just going to do this thing, because me and texting is not good. It's not safe.
You think? I mean, more than one person has said to me, Twin is really personable in person, but damn, when she's in chat, it's like, holy hell.
Well, and to be fair, like, not to be fair, to maybe put some context in it, right? For me, in chat, I'm like, that is unfiltered, undiluted, literally just like brain to fingers to keyboard.
Right.
Like it is not me responding to body language, to tone, to inflection, to all of that. Like it is just, like this I can have a personable conversation and like I'm an actual human. Right. And then I'm typing keyboard and I'm a fucking cunt. Like I get it. Sorry. Morgan, I have literally always been this way, and I have actually gotten considerably better.
Well, and I'm just thinking about that last live when you were in and somebody was talking about their toxic behavior, and it was like you immediately went to the same cactus tone that you used with me, and this was a complete stranger in my live, in my chat, and it's like, well, there goes one of my followers right there.
Started following me, and I was like, okay.
I know, but I'm sitting there and I'm going, damn it, twin.
Well, and it's so, and that one in particular, like, I was going afterward, and that one in particular was it all, like, also, that was a couple of days ago while I was going through all the, again, hormonal and emotional bullshit, because, not justifying it. I was a complete twat to this person, and I am so sorry. If they're watching, I apologize. But, again, that was a situation of, like, one, what they were saying was just factually wrong. And just a toxic mindset, right? Which is like literally, unfiltered, undiluted, I am just stating facts. You're wrong. This isn't healthy.
Right.
Like, this is not an okay mindset to have.
Yeah.
And again, like, and part of it too is I forget, again, like kind of a curse of knowledge thing. I forget that for me personally, I can take shit like that. If somebody looks at me and was like, hey, you're being a dumb bitch because this, I'm like, oh, okay, you're right.
Right.
And I forget that not everybody can do that. I forget that I can't do that to other people.
You can do it to me. It just takes me about a week to recover.
Yeah, look, Coco, you hop in the chat and tell them, like, I'm actually a leagues better than I used to be.
So I don't know what this means, but somebody named Tear Doesn't TikTok put a smiley face with 3 hand claps. So
he might know. I think he what I'm talking about, Yes, Nadia, cactus love concentrate, honestly. Well, and Peach, to your point, I've actually considered, like, going and getting screened for maybe autism in my family. I definitely think I run more towards just the ADHD side, but I do have a lot of the same sort of overlapping autistic tendencies.
Yeah.
One of those is the fact that I cannot always, especially over text, I cannot have the same sort of, I don't know how to put it. Like, I'm not as, like, undiluted, like, it's not cactus love concentrate, right? Like, if I'm talking like this, it's easier for me in person. It's always been easier for me to talk in person than it has ever been to talk over text or even a phone call.
Yeah.
Like,
it is night and day.
Always. Yes. 100%. I am a completely different person over text.
To the point that I can't even hear your voice.
Yeah.
Whenever I read your text.
Yeah.
So,
and I hate it. I really do. I love you too. But, like, that's another one of those signs of, like, or not signs, but, like, side effects, symptoms, whatever you want to call it, of my neurodivergency. I really just, to me, texting something, I know what I'm saying, and in my head, I'm saying it just fine.
Right.
But, like, reading it back? No! Absolutely not. Brutally honest with love. Yeah.
Twin's gonna have her own content warning. She needs a t-shirt that just says content warning. Twin.
With a side of disaster.
Dear, we are at 9:15.
Oh, God. Okay.
So I want to ask, do you want to continue? Do you have something you need to do? What would you like?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm lovely to continue. Well, I mean, this has turned into roasting twin hours, so I'm okay with it, Well, and I think it's too is like, And because I just saw this too. This is another reason I want to continue with Peach's comment over here about using a ton of emoji gifs. That has been the biggest for me. I have started, and this came from seeing a bunch of people, talking to people, and interacting with people who are on the autistic spectrum, and how they use emojis to convey what they're saying. And it's one of the reasons why, like, I used to fucking hate emojis. And then I would read back through my texts and emails and everything else, and I'm like, I'm a fucking bitch. Wow. If I were reading this from somebody else, I'd want to slap this person. What the fuck? So I'm trying to get better about using emojis and stuff like that to, like, soften the message.
Yeah.
If Coco's there, ask her. I'm 100. Like, I don't know if she's still in the chat or not, but I know she won't mind me telling the story. When Coco, when she and I first met, we did not get along at all. And it was because, neurodivergent monster that I am, she tried to introduce herself to me the first time we worked together. And I was like, and I was did not know I was ADHD, non-medicated, stressful shit going on in life. You know, like, I was not in a great headspace anyway. And we worked for Coyote Ugly. It was a very high speed, high intensity job. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to introduce herself to me while I was in the middle of doing something. And I was, like, hyper focused because when I was bartending, I would minute micro hyper focus moments of, like, counting money, counting drinks, whatever I was doing. It was like I was super focused on that thing for that second, and then I could pop out of it and go do whatever else I needed to do, and I was fine. But, like, don't interrupt me while I'm doing this fucking thing.
Right.
So she went to interrupt me while I was counting something, which I suck at numbers. So really don't interrupt me while I'm counting. And I can't remember if I was tallying my drawer or what. But she tried to introduce herself to me, and, like, without thinking about how I was coming across, just flat out answered. I was like, I'm sure you're nice. I don't know you. Don't bother telling me your name because I will forget it. I will try to learn your name if you stick around for more than 2 weeks. And, like, again, like, and I know how, like, hearing that back, I'm like, wow, somebody punched this bitch. But it was literally in my head, right? Like, I was just like, I'm not, like, it was one of those, like, I was trying to tell her, like, please don't take it the wrong way. If I forget your name, I'm garbage with names until you do something to stand out. And it's true. And now I know how to tell people, I am so sorry. I will most likely forget your name. Please bear with me. You know, give me some grace here. You know, now I can effectively communicate that. At 25, 26, I didn't know how to fucking communicate that. I was just word vomiting on her. God love how she put up with me. I don't know. But turns out we became two of the baddest bitches at the bar because I was also one that once I realized I liked her, mm-hmm. I went to fucking bat for her over everything. And it was like, I was her biggest, like, supporter. I had her, like, ride or die. Like, yeah. And that's how I am. Yeah. Is like, and part of that also comes down to, speaking of mental health, the anxious avoidant attachment style. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go too far into it, but if you have time, fellow watchers, please go look up attachment styles. It's fascinating. It will tell you so much. It'll help you figure out your traumas. And myself being anxious avoidant, I do, and again, this comes back to, like, our recent interaction, tend to, like, push people away mm-hmm. when I think that they or I will get hurt.
Right.
And it's just a self-defense mechanism. It's not healthy. It's not great. I'm working through it. I'm trying to get back into therapy for it. But it is what it is.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we deal with this thing in our head that we don't even know that's there. And it influences everything that we do. And we don't even recognize it.
Right. And it does so much. So much. And again, that comes back to like hormones, to your mental health, all of it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, your mental health on a good day could have negative impacts. Your hormones
Yeah.
on a can have negative impacts. And that's one of those things that like it's one of the reasons why now, and that's one of the reasons I don't mind talking about like the shit I've done, like the shitty person I was and occasionally still slide back to. I don't mind talking about those things because we're all there.
Yeah.
You know, we all have those things. We all have, problems. I don't mind talking about mine because if my talking about my bullshit helps somebody recognize, identify, cope with, and or improve their bullshit,
Right.
it's worth it. It's
Yeah.
100.
And that is one of the reasons why I am transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that my propensity to fuck up is greater than my propensity to get fucked. So it's like, I'm going to mess up a lot more than I'm going to do something good for myself.
Oh, that's everybody.
Right. And so, me being aware of that and knowing that if I'm honest, if I'm open and say, yeah, I acknowledge this is exactly how I screwed up,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why I screwed up,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what happened when I screwed up, I want to let people know they're not alone.
Right. Well, and that comes, like I mentioned earlier, cognitive behavioral therapy, like being aware of what you're doing in the moment or, as close to in the moment as possible.
Yeah.
That made such a big difference for me when I found that out. And again, I'm trying to find a therapist now. Unfortunately, where I'm at, it was kind of a shortage. But being aware of why you do things, knowing that, you're reacting a certain way because you're on the autistic spectrum, because you're neurodivergent, because your hormones are out of whack, because, and going, okay, well, that doesn't make it okay to do these things. So, how can I not?
Right.
How can I do better? I tell people all the time, like having gotten on medication and gotten therapy and done the hard work on myself that I did,
Yeah.
I don't recognize myself compared to who I was a year or 5 years ago when I
Right.
was telling some little kid with a mohawk, like, sorry, I'm not going to remember your name. Fuck off, child. Like, like I don't recognize that person compared to who I am now.
Yeah.
And that's a luxury, I know, that a lot of people don't have right now, is to go to therapy, get medication, whatever.
Right.
I understand I am very privileged in that way. So my message, if you can't get that care, is you're not alone. There are thousands of us. I was one of them, up until a year or two ago. I was one of those people that couldn't get care, had no idea what was wrong with me, had no clue I was neurodivergent, much less what neurodivergent was.
Right.
Had no idea. And that's why I was bumbling around just doing the best I could, and that's why I looked into cognitive behavioral therapy, because I was like, I need to get better. How can I do that?
Yeah.
And it's something that is entirely possible if you want to do it, if you have the resources to do it, and more importantly, if you have the support to do it.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the important thing, is you have to be surrounded by people who want you to get the kind of stuff that will help you.
Yes.
And for the longest time, I don't make any history of my presence in the church, But for the longest time, the church that I was in was very much, oh no, psychology is practically witchcraft, and it's your faith, and it's how much you pray and meditate and read the Bible and all of these things, and eventually it got to be, no, that is not where my brain is. I can
Right.
do all those things, and nothing positive comes out of that. I need something different.
Right.
And so, finding that help when I did saved me in a couple of different ways.
I'm glad you got it. I'm
So,
proud of you.
um, I am too, because, I started out with going to therapy to try to rescue my marriage.
Mhm.
It didn't work because there was not an equal weight at that time for it. But I realized how much I got out of it individually. And so when I was in a new situation, it's like, I've got to keep doing that
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
And even though I was not being supported in that, just knowing that it was good for me
Mm-hmm.
and feeling the difference within me, that was enough to keep me going.
Yeah.
And then I get connected to people who are like you, saying, Genie, go get your therapist, quit making excuses. Or
Excellent.
my friend Angela Lacascio, Mama Pistachio, she is my business coach, and she is right there saying, okay, sweetie, this is all hallmarks of neurodivergence. Let's see
Mm-hmm.
what we can do to work around this to get you to where you can function better. And it's
With it.
having people like that in my life.
Yeah.
Which I'm just going to give a plug here because one, she's the bestest person in my life. But if you like Katie Osaris, you'll love Angela Lacascio.
Okay.
The Mama Pistachio. She's actually a part of the Transverse network of partners, but she is fantastic. She's nerdy as fuck. She's funny as hell, and she's fabulous. And she
Love
can
that.
speak this stuff. And she was the one who connected me to neurodivergence and how that shapes the things that I'm going into and how I end up thinking. I've never had anyone read me because my brain functions in a totally different space.
Mm-hmm.
She can read me, and it's like I call her my brain clone because we are so close.
I love that.
But she's amazing. So you and Angela and Tier, a lot of my network of family who are there supporting me, my found family who are supporting me, it's that constant drive. We want you to be better, and we want you to have the good resources to get better. Looking at me and saying, no, it's not healthy if you're doing this. You need to do better. The constant drive to make me eat more, though, is a little bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Feel that.
But having that support is crucial as long as that support is pointing you toward the right solutions.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
And one saying it this way, one solution that works for one person may not necessarily be the solution that works for another person.
100%. Yeah.
But having that support to say, I want you to get the help that's going to make you be better. This is how I did it. It may not be the way you go about it.
Right. Well, and something that I am like working on that I'm very good stereotypically, right? Like I'm very good about telling other people to do this, but doing it myself, shocking, not so easy. But like reminding myself to reframe things when I'm talking to people about a situation that I recognize, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I know how this is going to go. Instead of shooting them in the foot so they can't go into the situation, maybe I just, I don't know, let them know where the landmines might be. Instead, let them traipse their way across the field and see what happens.
Right.
I'm working on that. That part is still in development. And I'm trying to get better about doing that. Tyr, bless him, has been working diligently with me on trying to remember to do that. I don't know why he is.
Right.
But and that could go for anybody. Again, it goes for everybody.
Yeah.
Myself as a prime example.
But also, there's just that reality that we are very much prone to not listen to our own advice.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody said something like that to me.
Don't know who that could have been, Genie. I don't know.
So.
On that note.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I really have to use run, but.
Yeah. And I think that we have pretty much run to the ends of this. So, Twin, thank you so much.
Of course, anytime, my love.
Thank you for the conversation, but more importantly, thank you for your relationship. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support.
I love you.
The fact that you are there, and even though you still want to love me through a cactus, it still matters to me. So thank you.
Of course, and I'm working on it. You always have permission. Well, I told you very early on you have permission to tell me when I'm putting my foot in my mouth. So
yeah, and sometimes I
forget
take things when I shouldn't, as I was reminded lately. So,
but you and I am so very, very grateful for your friendship and to have you as part of our family. Because of situations like our conversation earlier, when we can laugh, cry, all of it together. It really, really means a lot. And I hope all of you here that are watching can have half of an amazing friend as Genie has been here for me already in just a very short time. I hope you all get such an amazing friend. She's a blessing.
My family of Tyr and Twin, I couldn't hope for a better found family. So
Love you.
I love you too. Thank you all for staying with us in this extended version of Roasting Twin and talking about important matters. Tyr is going to get on to me and chastise me because he did say that I was roasting you. So I will take those swats when he's willing to give them.
She got a new one, so I'd be careful about saying that.
Okay, will do. So thank you all for hanging out in the Twitch chat. And Ashura, thank you for being the mod in charge. I appreciate you so much, Amanda. Thank you. And for those in TikTok land, thank you all for hanging in there and dealing with us. So, of course, tomorrow night is Valkyries here on twitch.tv/the Transverse, when the forces of good of the Valkyries team will go and shoot the faces of 12-year-olds across the landscape of Fortnite. So, join us again tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, and watch the Valkyries as they rise triumphantly out of the mess that they make of things. So, good night, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.